Alright, I got the worst of the worst out of the way, now it's time to move on to the best of the best. And 2017 was such a great year for movies that I couldn't narrow this down to 10 picks. So, without further ado, here are my top 20 favorite movies of 2017. Now, usually before I do my best of and worst of lists, I always start off with the biggest surprise of the year. A movie that I was not looking forward to at all, saw it, and ended up really liking it. But you know what? Much like with the worst of, the surprise of 2017 was so good, it actually ended up in my top 20. So I'll get to that movie when I get to it. And also I should say that the criteria for this list is solely based on how much I enjoyed the movie. How often could I see myself rewatching this movie? How much of an impact did it leave on me? So if there's a movie on this list that you feel like should be higher and it's not, then that's my list. I can't do anything about it because it's my own personal opinion. And also because this list does contain 20 movies, there are some movies that I want to put higher on the list because I love them that much. But the only reason they're not higher is because I've seen other excellent movies that I've enjoyed more. So without further ado, let's jump into number 20, which is Steven Spielberg's The Post. This movie is very low on the list because, as I mentioned in my 2017 movie catch-up video, it does have a few schlocky Spielberg moments that you usually see in his Oscar movies that I just can't stand. The ending in particular is just kind of like, oh, come on, or just so sappy and so manufactured to get Oscar attention. But that being said, this movie is incredibly relevant considering the times that we're going through right now. This movie is about the press being barred by the Nixon administration for posting information relating to the Vietnam War. And that very much mirrors what He Should Not Be Named is doing with our press, calling him fake news, wanting to sue them just because they're reporting bad things about him. Jesus, even Nixon had more dignity. So that's why I put it on this list. And also, Tom Hanks and Meryl Streep are phenomenal. I don't think Spielberg's ever worked with Meryl Streep before, but Meryl Streep still is a phenomenal actress. She does a fantastic job here, and Tom Hanks is Tom Hanks. He's great as always. So this movie is one that, while I won't be watching over and over and over again, it's one that definitely holds cultural relevance to what's going on today. Number 19 is a movie that I know is not going to be on anyone's best of list, but thinking back on it more, I really enjoyed it, and that's Free Fire. This is one of the most inventive action movies considering its limited space. It's sort of a bottle film that takes place in a warehouse, and the whole movie is nothing but these guys shooting each other repeatedly, and in a way, it's kind of creative. The characters aren't doing anything special, and there's not much of a plot or character development at all, but just basing this as an action movie, it's really entertaining, and it's very quick and to the point. It starts where it needs to start and knows exactly where it ends. Not one of the better action movies this year, but it's definitely one that in many ways stuck out. Number 18 is Darkest Hour, starring Gary Oldman. Sometimes with World War II period pieces, they kind of mesh together at points, but I end up loving them because with World War II, that's such a fascinating era in terms of our world's history, and I always end up learning something new. That's why I love World War II video games at points, because you kind of learn some things about the actual events, even if the games are super unrealistic with you shooting Nazis in the balls. But moving past that, with this movie, I got to learn all the stuff that led Winston Churchill to declare war on the Nazis and to gain the country's support. And Gary Oldman is phenomenal in this role. He is excellent. There's a reason why he won the Golden Globe, and there's a reason why he should win the Academy Award, because you buy him as Winston Churchill. And then the rest of the cast is great. Ben Mendelsohn, Lily James, everyone's great in this movie, and it really makes a great companion piece to another movie I'll be talking about very soon. Number 18 is a movie that I'm actually shocked is not getting the attention that it should, and that's Detroit. This is a movie that really left an impact on me, but it's one of these movies that I can never watch again. Catherine Bigelow really directed the hell out of this. It's got a great cast. The actor who plays the cop, like the really aggressive racist cop, is so good that it's a crime that he's not getting award recognition for his role. And the whole scene where the cops are pretty much torturing these people is more effective than any horror movie that has come out this year. It puts you on the edge of your seat and is biting your nails constantly. The reason why it's this low on the list is because, again, it doesn't have the rewatch value. It's a movie where I look at and go, yeah, this is great. I'm never watching this again. So again, it's incredibly well made. Catherine Bigelow continues to prove that she is a great director, and it's a crime that this movie is not getting more attention. Number 16 is a movie that I personally don't think is as good as everyone says it is, and that's Edgar Wright's Baby Driver. Thinking back on this movie, and even when I reviewed it, I said that it's a great movie more on a technical aspect and as an action movie than it is on plot or characters. Because I'll tell you right now, the main character of Baby is just really dull. The actor who's playing him is probably the weakest actor of the bunch, because you got Jamie Foxx and John Hamm acting circles around him, and even Kevin, I've picked the wrong time to come out as gay Spacey, act circles around this kid. But that being said, the action is great, the editing is phenomenal, especially the sound mixing. Mixing all the sounds of gunfire with whatever song is playing is excellent. It's not my favorite Edgar Wright movie. If anything, it's my least favorite. Shaun of the Dead is still my favorite, but it definitely proves that Edgar Wright is a fantastic director, especially when it comes to action scenes. And I always look forward to see what he's going to do next. Now, 2017 has not been the best year for animated movies. If anything, it ranged from mediocre to just downright bad, with movies like Boss Baby, Cars 3, Despicable Me 3, and the shitstorm that was the Emoji Movie. But there were two really great animated movies, both of which made my top 20 list. And number 15, I have the Lego Batman movie. After the Lego movie, I was willing to give this the benefit of the doubt, but there was still a little hesitation just because it seemed like Warner Brothers continuously milking Batman, but this ended up being a lot of fun. The jokes hit, and it's that quick shotgun humor that made the Lego movie work so well. The animation is stellar. I love all the cameos by other Lego properties. I love the voice work by Will Arnett, Michael Cera, Rosario Dawson, Ralph Fiennes. Zach Galifianakis as the Joker is a better Joker than Jared Leto. And to top it all off, it was the best DC movie since The Dark Knight. At least for 4 months, and we'll get to that a little later. So, the Lego Batman movie, tons of fun with it. I don't love it as much as the Lego movie, but still, definitely better than the Lego Ninjago. Number 14 is Thor Ragnarok. I was a little skeptical about this one because Thor has not been the best and strongest hero within the MCU in terms of his solo movies. I wasn't a fan of Thor the Dark World at all, but this one surprised the hell out of me. It's the best of the Thor movies. It's the Thor movie that I wanted to see. And in terms of the humor, it gave me what I was missing with Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2. I still like that movie, but it's no Thor Ragnarok. Chris Hemsworth still does a fantastic job as Thor. The action scenes in this movie are great, especially the arena fight between Thor and the Hulk. I love Tessa Thompson as Valkyrie. And Cate Blanchett is enjoying every second she's on screen as Hela. She is so good as a villain. And it has a great setup for what's going to happen with Thor in Infinity War. It's just only a matter of time of seeing how this plays out. So again, I'm looking forward to the future of the MCU. Thor Ragnarok was another great addition. Number 13 also happens to be the biggest surprise of 2017, the movie that I was not looking forward to at all, but saw it and ended up loving it, and that is Patty Jenkins' Wonder Woman. After Suicide Squad, and especially after Batman vs. Superman, I was ready to write off the DC Extended Universe for just being total garbage, and the trailers for Wonder Woman did not really excite me at all. But lo and behold, not only was this good by comparison of the other movies, it was great. It broke the curse of every DC Extended Universe movie being terrible. It broke the curse of the female-led superhero movies being bad, because if this movie, based on the most iconic female superhero of all time, bombed, then it would be over. But no, Patty Jenkins directed the hell of this movie. It turned me around on Gal Gadot as Wonder Woman. Chris Pine is great. The action scenes are phenomenal, even if they get into the realm of being a little bit too Snydery. That's not a word. If I had any issues with the movie and why it's not in the top 10, I didn't like the final battle that much. It just looked way too CG heavy and reminded me too much of Batman vs. Superman. But regardless, it's still an amazing superhero movie all around. And even if I'm not looking forward to the rest of the DCEU, I'm still looking forward to everything that happens involving Wonder Woman. Number 12 is a movie I literally knew nothing about walking into it, and that would be Lady Bird. This was a very charming and heartfelt movie, and it's a very relatable coming-of-age story, no matter what your gender is at all. Saoirse Ronan is phenomenal in this role, and she won the Golden Globe for Best Actress in Comedy or Musical. She definitely deserves an Oscar nomination for the role. And the actress who played her mom in the film, I'm not remembering her name, but she also deserves recognition at the Oscars for Best Supporting Actress. It's just an overall really funny movie, very heartfelt, and very real movie. None of the scenarios feel fake at all. They all feel like scenarios some of us have been in before. And it's just a movie that if you don't walk out of this saying it's good, then I'm sorry, you have no soul. Number 11 is the companion piece to Darkest Hour, and that would be Christopher Nolan's experimental war film, Dunkirk. The reason I say this is an experimental war film is because it's a war film told in a way that he would tell Memento, except not as complicated. You watch this whole movie, and it's a technical marvel all around. And as the movie goes on, you start to piece together how Nolan is telling this story, and it makes you love the movie even more. The sound editing is phenomenal, Hans Zimmer's score is incredible. Sure, the movie doesn't have any character development at all, but I look at these characters the same way I look at the characters in Shin Godzilla. What I mean is that while the characters individually are not interesting and some of them can be boring, they are all important and in a whole represent the event that's happening. And given that this movie's played out more like a war simulator, it tries to put you in the action, I can forgive the fact that there's not much character development. Seeing it in a true 8-story IMAX screen was phenomenal. It's my favorite Christopher Nolan movie since The Dark Knight. And now we get into the top 10. These are all the movies that I have adored, I have loved to death, and it was really difficult figuring out where I should place them. But in terms of number 10, we have Spider-Man Homecoming. This is my favorite Spider-Man movie for a multitude of reasons. One, while I really love Spider-Man 2, there are some problems with it where I can't really be honest and say that's the best Spider-Man movie. But what this movie does, it truly distinguishes itself from all the other Spider-Man movies. Most of the elements that you saw in the past movies aren't in this one. And on top of all that, it's the perfect representation of Peter Parker that I've seen in live action form. It's funny, the action scenes are great, it's got some heartfelt moments here and there, and I just love the idea of Spider-Man being in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. It was something I never thought I would end up seeing, but I did, and I absolutely love it. Number 9 is Jordan Peele's Get Out, another big surprise of the year, because I thought this was going to be a bland, generic horror movie, but what I ended up getting was a Twilight Zone type science fiction horror film that actually provides really great social commentary. It's also downright funny at points. Everyone in this movie gives a great performance. Daniel Kaluuya, Allison Williams, Catherine Keener, Bradley Whitford, everyone's great. And the fact that it's getting all of this award recognition just makes me so happy. So if you've never seen Get Out, please watch it. Please, please, please watch Get Out. Number 8 is my favorite superhero movie of the year, Logan. This is the Wolverine movie that I've been looking forward to. Not just because it's R-rated. I mean, sure, it was finally great to see Wolverine stab people and blood actually comes out. But it's also just a really great, heartfelt story. It's pretty much a superhero western, a modern day western. It's a great send-off to Hugh Jackman as Wolverine. He's played the character since 2000, and along with Sir Patrick Stewart as Charles Xavier, both of them not only go out in great ways, but they give the performance of their lifetimes as both characters. Even though there are some other superhero movies out there that I like more than Logan, that are more fun, like The Avengers, Iron Man, Logan is very much like The Dark Knight, where it continues to prove that just because a movie is of a specific genre does not mean that it's not one of the greats out there, because I feel like Logan is going to be like The Dark Knight. Not one of my top 5 favorite superhero movies, but it's going to be one of those that stands the test of time. So I adore Logan. I absolutely, absolutely adore this movie. Number 7 is a movie that I regret not giving a full review to, and that's The Big Sick. This is a very kind, heartfelt, romantic dramedy. It's funny all around, all the characters feel very real, and it has some really heart-wrenching moments. And the fact that Kumail Nanjiani wrote the screenplay with his wife, and this is based off how they met and the troubles that his wife went through, it makes it that more relatable and that more heartfelt, because you know that they put their heart into this movie. So if you've never seen this movie, please watch it, because it's a crime that it's not getting the award attention that it deserves. Number 6 is War for the Planet of the Apes. Despite the fact that there's no actual war in this movie, this is a great capper to a fantastic trilogy of movies that I didn't think was ever going to be good to begin with. I never thought Rise would end up being good, but it was. Dawn ended up being great as well. War might actually be my favorite. I still need time to think whether or not I like Rise above War or vice versa, but regardless, it's a great movie that's a prime example of visual storytelling. There isn't a whole lot of dialogue because the main focus is on Caesar and his crew of apes, and the only 2 characters that talk throughout those scenes are Caesar and Bad Ape. Andy Serkis gives a phenomenal performance once again as Caesar, as well as Steve Zahn on as Bad Ape. And again, this movie is an example. It should be an argument that just because you're wearing motion capture outfits and your character is 100% CG, that doesn't mean you're not giving a performance. Motion capture acting is still a form of acting, and I feel like it should be recognized. Give this man an Oscar nomination. Sadly, it's still not going to happen, but again, a case needs to be made that motion capture acting is acting. And War for the Planet of the Apes is definitely an excellent example of that case. Now we come to the top 5. These were all the movies that I thought to myself, this is number 1, this is number 1, this is number 1, no, this is number 1. So it was really difficult to put them in the order that I put them. But at number 5, I have Blade Runner 2049, the sequel that by all means should not have been good at all, but ended up being great. Making a sequel to Blade Runner was a ballsy decision to make. Stupid and ballsy, I should say. But when you have Denis Villeneuve direct it, the same guy who made Arrival, you get a phenomenal science fiction movie. Ryan Gosling is great in this film. The cinematography by Roger Deakins is gorgeous. The visuals are outstanding. It does run for a little too long, but it's just a fascinating film from beginning to end. It's also very tragic in some ways. The relationship that Ryan Gosling has with his holographic girlfriend, even though these two aren't technically human, you feel something. And Harrison Ford as Rick Deckard is phenomenal in this role. With this and his return as Han Solo in The Force Awakens, he really came to work and gave great performances and great send-offs to both characters. If they make another Blade Runner, who knows if Rick Deckard comes back? I don't want him to come back because this was a great send-off to his character. I still think the original Blade Runner is a better movie in my opinion. I know a lot of people say the opposite, but Blade Runner 2049 is an excellent sequel. Another excellent sequel is my number 4 film, Star Wars: The Last Jedi. Ooh, I can sense a great disturbance in the Force. It's as if millions of voices cried out in anger, and they continue to be angry. I don't get the hate for this movie at all. I adore The Last Jedi, because rewatching this movie 2 more times, I always pick up on little details, and some of the problems I had prior are so minimal that it doesn't bother me compared to all the really great stuff that this movie has to offer. I love how most of the characters start somewhere and end somewhere, particularly Finn, Poe, Kylo Ren, and Luke Skywalker. I love the action scenes. I love the beautiful look that Rian Johnson gave this film, especially with the crimson red color palette that just dominates the entire movie. Sure, Rian Johnson's strength is not in humor, but his strength is in storytelling. And The Last Jedi is definitely one of the more fresh Star Wars movies that shows that if you keep doing the same things over and over, the franchise is never going to grow. And this is a case where it does things that are different to allow the franchise room to expand and move on, but it also stays true to the spirit of Star Wars. And if you don't see that, then I feel sorry for you. And I'm not saying you're bad, it's just that's your opinion. I feel bad that you didn't enjoy The Last Jedi, but hey, I love The Last Jedi. And as much as I adore this movie, there were 3 movies that I thought were better. Number 3 is The Disaster Artist. This was a movie that I was so looking forward to when it was coming out, because The Room is such a fascinating movie. It's one of the worst movies ever made, but I love it just because of the story behind it. And this movie is very inspiring. It's this generation's Ed Wood. It's a movie about a strong friendship that, despite all the ups and downs, that these two, Greg Sestero and Tommy Wiseau, continue to be friends. It's also an inspiring movie for anyone who wants to make it big. If you really dedicate yourself to it, if you really believe in it, you can achieve success. And with both Ed Wood and The Disaster Artist, even though these real life people did not achieve the success in the way that they thought they would, they still made it, and people still remember them and talk about their work to this day. It's just a great, great movie all around. I absolutely adore The Disaster Artist. Number 2 is, in my opinion, the best movie that this director has made, and that's Guillermo del Toro's The Shape of Water. This movie, hands down, should win the Oscar for Best Production Design. It's a beautiful looking movie in terms of the sets, and I love the teal blue color palette that this movie inhabits. And on top of that, it's a great love story. It's a better Beauty and the Beast movie than the live action Beauty and the Beast movie. Sally Hawkins is phenomenal in this role without speaking a word. Doug Jones is great, even though he's wearing a suit. The score by Alexandre Desplat is my favorite score of the year. Like I said, it's my favorite Guillermo del Toro movie. It's a movie that I can see myself watching again and again and again and again because I love it that much. This was a movie that you had to have seen in the theaters, and if you didn't see it in the theaters, A, go do it, and if you missed your chance, you really missed out on something phenomenal. Now we are at number 1. My number 1 pick of the year is the best animated movie of the year and one of Pixar's best, Coco. After the mediocrity that was Cars 3, I was wondering what was going to happen with Coco, but I'm happy to say that it's one of their best works to date. Obviously, the visual look is outstanding because it brings to life the Day of the Dead in a very familiar way, but in a way that feels kind of fresh in terms of how the land is portrayed. The characters are great. The story itself is very inspiring and heartfelt, and it's a Pixar movie that is guaranteed to make you cry. I mean, this is from Lee Unkrich, the same guy that did Toy Story 3, and like I said in my review, if there's anyone who's going to make a Pixar movie that will make you cry, it'll be Lee Unkrich. I don't know what else I have to say about Coco. It's just another great Pixar movie, and it continues to show that even with their ups and downs, Pixar will make a movie every once in a while that is better than most of the Oscar nominations for Best Picture that year. I highly doubt that this is going to get a Best Picture nomination, but that doesn't stop the fact that this is my favorite movie of the year. I adore Coco. And there you go. Those are my top 20 favorite movies of 2017. I really gotta start narrowing these things down if 2018 ends up being a year just as good as last year. Here's to 2018. I hope you enjoyed this list. Leave a comment down below and tell me what your thoughts are on this list. Which movies do you agree with, disagree with? What are your picks for the best movies of 2017? And until next time, this is the real Mr. Robinson telling you there's only one.